Thank you. Good morning. Thank you for the beautiful introduction. You will get from my accent that is Swedish, as you can feel that I'm Italian. So if you don't catch what I'm saying, raise the hand. I will try to improve. Despite my 3 years in the United States, my English is not exactly the best thing I have in mind. So what do you see here? You see the magic miracle of a newborn, or you see the other miracle of a person that starts aging. I think there's nothing wrong with the fact that we can see even this side of the story, because it's something that affects all of us. We all are aging. And I don't want to bother with chart about the global demographic trends. I think you've seen these people pyramids so many times. So I just try to tell the story from another perspective. And if I say the same stuff from geographical perspective, and you see Japan here, and it's not the case you have an Italian guy on stage, because as you know, we're the second fastest aging country in the world after Japan. But this is what's going to happen. By 2050, 31 countries, and I guess you spot a pretty big one inside, will have the same age that Japan has today. So it means that something actually is happening. And it's happening because we are doing our best to avoid the one thing that we try to fight since we born, like the child in the beginning. We try to defeat death. So that's why we're still, growing in terms of global population of aging. But also there's something else which is happening, which is, as you can read, the nature of aging, it seems to change. And one of the facts that you can underline about the fact that aging is changing is that basically, year after year, we're gaining a little time forward in our life. Just like, as Professor Tom Kirkwood say, we're just gaining, let's say, 20% every 2 years more, which is something somehow interesting that is not exactly a novelty. Let me introduce you 3 guys that in pretty tough conditions lived quite long. You see Galileo, Newton, Michelangelo, and they have to fight against the famine plague war, and they have no antibiotics, they have no vaccination, they had no organ transplant. So already then, you could see some signs about the fact that probably we will live a little longer than we typically think we should have to live. And there are 3 things that are happening. We're living longer in a better health, so we'll be more healthy people. There are a lot of research that are telling us that one of the issues related to our death is more about the damage we cause to ourselves. So ideally, it seems we are somehow programmed to live longer than we're supposed to be. And finally, we realize that aging is a process that it's far more malleable than what we thought before. This can be done in several ways. Many ways: diet, managing our chronic disease in a different way. And obviously, since I'm from IBM, technology plays a role. I just put here some example on how we are improving our health, so how we are improving, let's say, is our lifespan. This is a nice project about people that is sharing their symptoms, their stories, their therapies, and put them together to suggest others how to improve. Or you will have chatbots that are helping you today to cure arthritis. Or you have new ways to understand how we are moving. So posture is a wonderful way to understand how to improve our life. Or we have tools that are helping us to perform things that we couldn't do before, even if we're getting older and older. Or you have new way to improve how to recover from an accident. Or you have new way to better walk. And if you go around the MIT Media Lab, you will see people literally without their legs walking this way. Or you are even a way to change your cells or improve the quality of your cells. And it's happening now today thanks to research from different and many perspectives. But there is one thing that is happening about the fact that we're aging. So this new idea of the lifespan of our age, that it's a kind of a paradox, because we are not ready to have ourselves around 100, 120. This society is not ready at all. And that's, I guess, the big challenge that we have to face. So the first main challenge is to convert a world that has been built by and for the young into a world that will have to manage people that will live 100 years old. What the hell are we going to do if you're 110 in perfect health? But it's the surroundings able to accept us? Is the workplace able to accept us? So the societal aspect of what it's related to this concept of longevity, it's giving us some of these challenges. And some of these challenges are literally in us every day. How many times have you heard the word tsunami related to aging? So it's just like a disaster coming up. You talk about aging, it's something bad. There is no way that you can dismantle these two concepts. And ageism is literally everywhere, and it's a discrimination that it's far more wide since affects all of us than other discrimination that we still are fighting, but at least we're able to recognize, like sexism and racism. If you go around and you just try to sign your application for a blog, you find something like Tumblr here, that it says, oh, you are 29 years old, or you are 30 years young, a blink in the eye. And it's again a way on how you can face what's happening around ageism, which is one of the causes that generates a sort of a societal understanding or misunderstanding around the concept of aging. This is my bathroom. I just took a picture on how many anti-aging products I bought, my family bought, so that's myself, without thinking that we were buying things against ourselves, because it's anti-aging, and if I'm aging, it's exactly against me. Up to the point that someone realized there's something that we have to do. I don't know if you read about the news, it was September 2017. Allure magazine says, you know what, guys? No way, not anymore. We don't want anymore the word anti-aging inside our magazine. So people also from a language perspective is try to pull out the fact that there's things related to that tsunami that I was talking before that are not exactly good and are those that are generating so many causes effects. And one of the cause effect about aging is this one. You in UK are the first country in the world to have appointed, January 2018, a minister for loneliness. And loneliness, it's a damage generated by a society that it's not able to manage people, that it's getting older in, let's say, is in brackets, good health. Studies say it's just loneliness has the same effects of smoking 15 cigarettes a day. Last year, we ran a study on the impacts of loneliness and isolation, but mainly loneliness, on economy and health. And basically, these are the facts. So on the left, you see what it's happening to our health. On the right, what does it mean from an economical perspective. And 43% of people over 65 claim the fact that they were feeling isolated and lonely. So can technology mitigate all this? Sure it can, or better. Let me start from it could, because we still don't realize that that's an issue and a business opportunity. Advertisers are spending 500% more on millennials, and I love millennials. I don't have anything against it, but they're not realizing there's something else happening. Or the fact that the economic power today is in the hands of this population. So I'm trying to raise one element. 50+% of the US population controls 83% of the US household wealth. It's worth $60 trillion. So there is a real economic opportunity behind this. And also there is another consideration we should have to care about. I guess you don't know this guy. It's a very famous goalkeeper in the 70s. So when I was a boy, this was of our idol. His last name is Boranga. That sounds like this amazing, last name that at that time was a kind of a primal scream. And it was pretty popular in the 70s in Italy. And I think 2 weeks ago, he signed a new deal at 75. So he's paid to go back to play on a professional team, 75. And guess what? There is a statistic that says that at 75, only 35% of the people say that they felt old. So the point is, if you don't feel old, why do you should buy products for the old? You should buy things like those that are two very famous, let me say, failures in how you are designing things for the elders. Because what you focus on are on the needs and not on the wants. The phone on the right has keys that are big, like more or less a screen of an iPhone today. And it's screaming something, this product. Hey, I have this product. I'm an old guy. On the left, you see a PERS system, a classic system of emergency. Only 14% of Germans who has bought a PERS system are wearing it. So ideally, there are technologies that somehow could help us, or the intention were very good, but it's being designed in a way they're not how they should be. So they're not considering a population which is changing. You probably have heard about Iris Apfel, and if we're getting older and we're in good health, probably we will have different ideas and desires and needs, but mostly wants that should have to be delivered by industries and researchers. You have to understand these people. So probably from my job title, you were thinking I was working a sort of a spaceship that is completely disconnected from the world, looking only at data. This is me under a sink in a city, central Italy, try to install some technology in a home of a person who is 83 years old. If you don't go under that sink, or if you don't look in the eyes people like, here is Apfel, or try to understand what's going on, you completely miss what's happening in the world today. So as we used to say in my organization, but basically in all the organizations that do research, the world is our lab. You have to get there. Otherwise, the data science, which is, let me say, one of the most requested profession after caregivers, so there are more need for caregivers than data scientists, but nevertheless, data scientists has to understand what is the environment they have to play. Otherwise, how they can play with the data they're claiming to play. And we felt that there was a sort of a lack of understanding between the wants and the people we should have to serve. So last year we put together a framework. I invite you to use it. It's a classic way, of the periodic table because it's a classic representation. But the idea is here we try to put together the elements that connecting one by one can help us to build solutions that can help people to deliver better projects based on technology. Okay, so it's a helpful guideline to, based on the experience we've done so far, to help you in designing this kind of a project. So what technology can do to address some of the issues I presented before? For sure, one very human thing first. So this is a very low-tech technology, but it's extremely powerful. It's a bookstore, or it's a sharing book system that you can find in several cities. This has been taken in Washington, and basically allow people to start sharing books and create a sort of a sense of community around the people in that neighborhood. It's high-tech? No. But it's a technology because someone has to build that little box and the system behind which works. There is another one, a little more, let me say, structured, but effective as well. I don't know if you know about the project Call and Check in the Jersey Island here, made by the Jersey Post. And basically, they are leveraging the infrastructure in place. So the postman delivering the physical mail, asking the postman to be a sort of a supervisor, a networker, a connector between the elders that live disconnected in that side of the country. So the postman becomes a sort of a physical presence that can be empowered or not by some technology, but it's there to try to connect the dots. Because one of the factors that we all know for sure is that how important are social connection to cognitive and physical health. There is something quite basic. So there's another human factor that is happening today, and I think affects the audience, because there is a cultural, technological shift that it's happening today. And we're transitioning, I guess you realize, from the touch world that has been, let me say, introduced to us by Apple and the iPhones, to a completely new paradigm of interaction, which is based on voice, which is far more easy than touch. You don't even have to touch the technology. Just talk to the technology. So what's happening, and it's happening now. So this is literally the new revolution. In few years, we won't have touch phone probably anymore, or the touch phone will be fully empowered in a completely vocal-based way. While you're driving, while you're at home, wherever you will be, you will interact with voice. If you want, I can tell you what it will interact after voice. which will be brain. So you don't even have to talk. But it's coming up, and it's not that far away. Let's stay where we are today. What is happening is that conversation is the new media. So it's a completely new way to interact with whatever we have around us. And again, you don't need so many super high tech to start. The land phone is already there in the home of everybody. Look at this very nice project. It's called University Without Walls. It's basically helping people or educating people via phone calls. Very basic one. And it works. So then we're transitioning from what you see on the left, that it's basically our world today. Screens, touch phones, even some of these innovative sensing-based things, through completely vocal-based devices. They're called voice first. And the market, it's showing us that it's happening. So it's not only me as a researcher talking to you about it. Alexa's, Google Home, all these kind of devices, IBM with its Watson piece of work, are all empowering loudspeakers. So the interaction is going through, let me say, far more effective way, and technology is proving. And people, this is one of the first research where this technology has been applied in a context where elders were living, are showing signs that they like it. Basically, they're not looking for some other specific information, weather, news, the same things you can browse with your Google or your phone. But what is interesting, they start also commending the environment around them, and they really love it. So there are a lot of research that are coming up, usability test, appreciation test, or whatever the way to say it correctly, the word, that are showing us people is very interested. Now, what are the technologies that are empowering all this shift from the understanding of the world through basic interaction through touch to an interaction through voice, and understanding the world from the data around? I put here 5 pillars. All these 5 pillars are happening. You see there is one pillar that it's obviously artificial intelligence, that it's coming up everywhere. And it's coming up now, and will come even more in the future. There are deeper insight. For example, distributed deep learning. So data will be able to learn from other data. There are new way of engaging. Human-machine collaboration. So there will machine and us will be collaborating in a completely different way. Personalization, at scale. So we'll know a lot more about ourselves, even in big numbers, with a granularity that we couldn't even imagine before. And then an instrumented planet. So sensors everywhere that are telling something about something that is happening. Now, I just go through some of the application of these technologies in reality. So what you're going to see is what is empowered by all of this technology at different levels in something that will affect us. This is a sort of kind of a health reminder and health suggestion that it's supporting you in your everyday life, as well as this other one. It's coming up, it's still not on sale, but it's a new way to interact with the whole ecosystem around you. And it's all voice commanded. And you see it's not anthropomorphic as the classic kind of a robot, but in bracket, it is a robot. There are new ways to understand about what's happening around us. Far more powerful, cheaper, more reliable, more, let me say, deep in terms of information type of sensors. There are advisors from different domains. This is a chatbot that is basically providing therapy to people that can afford it, or it's too far away and disconnected by a therapist that can be reached by a physical person. There are new ways to understand us using facial recognition. So it's not only understanding who we are, but how we feel and what are our emotions. And this can be applied in so many contexts. That's why I pulled out one context that is not very usual. It's, for example, checking out how you're doing while you're driving. So potentially in the future, you could be 105 years old and maybe don't even have a driving license because there is a system that is telling that you, anyway, a good driver. And there is a system that is basically supporting and controlling you and giving advices to others that you're a good one. Or there is a way to go out from your environment without even moving a muscle. There are a lot of interesting projects using virtual reality and augmented reality to help people, in this case, is people with Alzheimer's, to have a multisensorial experience, so to allow them to explore places, to allow people that are stuck in their bed for whatever reason to meet their grandchildren or travel somewhere else where they've never been before. And again, the experience seems to be fulfilling for these people. Because ideally, we could say, what kind of world it's in front of us? But then when you do the test and you get the feedback from these people, you realize that probably we have to think twice about how we can evaluate this type of technology. There are garments that have powerful system embedded in the fabrics that will help us to walk back again or stimulate our nerves without even thinking about it. So our legs, 105 years old legs, will be supported by a system like this one. Or there will be robots that will follow us when we have to do grocery shopping. This is a Piaggio, you know, the scooter producer. They have a lab in Cambridge. They developed this thing that's called Gita. It's basically a wheel that it's following you. You can load it with 25 kilos of groceries and whatsoever, and also it's able to do the stairs. So it's not only staying outside the home, but it gets inside the home. And you know what it can do? It can suggest you, if you haven't walked for the last couple of days, hey, why don't we go to have a walk? Follow me. So it's not only following you. And finally, you have self-driving vehicles. This is Oli. We worked with this company to build a sort of a community vehicle that can help people in a community to go around. It's completely self-driven. It's able to pick you up, drive you somewhere, follow your desires, suggest you where to go. I was at the MIT Age Lab. We did a session about self-driving vehicles. There was a panel of 85-year-old people. And I was so surprised when these people told clearly they would love to have a machine that is coming up from outside their home, pick them up, drive them to the grocery store, bring back home, and be available to someone else. You know why? Because so they don't have to bother their daughter or son to do that. So it's independence that it's showing us a sort of a very powerful way that maybe we didn't think about it. Of all those technology that I showed you before, I picked one, and not because it's a sort of a, let me say, an IBM, one of the most outstanding projects we're working on. It's quantum computing. But because it's an enabler of all those technology, because the more the data, the more computing capability we need. And quantum computing is, again, it's a completely different paradigm. Now, you can access today to quantum computing. You go online and check for a project queue. You can submit your projects inside the quantum, and your data will be processed live by a quantum computer. So it's something that is happening, and it's able to generate an infinite number of calculations that can be done before. Now, if you want me to ask how a quantum computer looks like, I brought it. So it's not exactly, I guess, what you thought about a computer ideally. But remember the pictures in the 60s when we have computers in those big rooms. So this looks like, you know, something built in the late 800s and probably would be far more different. Now we have 7 of them that are running in 7 different labs all over the United States. But I guess it's a very good example on how you can empower most of the data we need to understand what's going to happen in the future. Because the point is here. Fact is that probably, we're not programmed to die. It's something that we should have to think about. There's a lot of implication. But let's say that we're not programmed to die. And imagine, you know, those 5 pillars of technologies that can empower what we try to do. And what we're trying to do, you know, is just to learn about how we age, how we are programmed, what is happening after, what could be the factor that can dismantle this programming. And I have one secret that I want to share with you, because I want to introduce you your next best programmer. And guess who is this programmer? It's all of us. Because if the promise of machine learning and artificial intelligence, those techniques are enabling data to understand from data, so you don't need anymore a programmer to program a computer, because computers will be programmed by the data. Well, the source of this data is all of us. Thank you.